Michael, thank you for showing up and hanging out with me on the podcast so we can have a great conversation around some stories behind the stories. I appreciate you. I know we've known each other for a few years, and this is going to be a great conversation. So thanks for hanging out with me today.
Dude, thanks for the invite. I tell everybody Jim is the man, and you truly have a servant's heart, man. So thank you so much for creating this podcast to create vulnerable conversations, and I'm excited to dive into it.
Well, man, I appreciate that. So the world of Michael, so you do a lot of stuff. Like when I first met you several years back, you were real estate flipping houses and things like that, coming out of some jobs. Now you're what was it? I think you just got a 10X award for funnels and doing virtual events and all that. Help me understand, like dive into some of the things you are currently doing, and then let's jump behind the scenes on some of that.
Yeah. So my name is Michael Tucker, and I currently run a digital marketing slash virtual event agency. That's all we specialize in is virtual events. Been doing this for about 5 or 6 years now. And so that's what I do primarily full time. We do some real estate investing on the side. But yeah, so I fell in love with marketing and sales. So I tend to live there 40 to 60 hours a week. And that's just kind of my world right now. But yeah, back when I met you, Jim, I was more heavily involved in real estate, in which kind of was the start of my real entrepreneurial journey, right? A lot of us entrepreneurs, or if you're listening and you are a business owner or a potential business owner, then you know a lot of times it starts as a childhood selling stuff, just being young moguls. And so that was my story. But real estate was the first real venture I could say I got myself into back a little bit prior before we met.
Yeah, I can say I was 8 when I first started my first business, 8. I had 3 by the time I was 12, so yeah, that hit home right there. So what you're saying your first entrepreneurship was real estate, right? What were some of the feelings, like, how did you get over the fear of jumping into that? Like, because everybody has these blockages, especially when they think of real estate, because that's a lot of money to be thrown around. So
Right.
what were some of the things you did to overcome some of those fears?
Fortunately, Jim, I was young and dumb, so there was not a lot of fears in my head and my heart because to set the frame here and set the tone, I was just in college. I just gotten married. So like I was in a point in my life where just going out there, going, as hard as I can in life. And I was trying everything and anything to make a dollar. I was trying stock trading because I listen, college kids, we don't got no money. All right. So I was like, I
Right.
was as a part-time youth minister, I was going to school, I was working part-time at restaurant service. I had no money. So I was trying everything, bro. And I think one of the, we talked about struggles, we want to talk a little bit about the story behind the story. One of the
Mhm.
biggest ones for me whenever I first was starting out in business and in life was shiny object syndrome. So before I even made that decision to jump into real estate, the adversity I faced was trying to figure out which one I even wanted to go with, right? And so I think that's a lot of what current business owners face because there's so much to pay attention to on social media. You have ads everywhere, you got people running events everywhere, people telling you you need to do Facebook groups, you need to be running virtual events. It's just there's a lot. And so whenever I was first starting out, I just was trying everything and anything I could. I was trying e-commerce. I was trying, like I said, stock trading. I tried anything you see ads about, I was trying it. And so one day, one of my friends, he reached out and said, "Hey, Michael, I think you should try real estate as well. You should try real estate as well because, I think you could do good. You're good at sales. You're a go-getter." I said, "Dude, I ain't got no money. As you know, I'm in college. What do you think is going to happen here?" And he said, "Well, I'll show you how to do it with no money, know, all that stuff. Very little credit." And I was like, "Okay, let's try it." And so it was during that time I realized because I hit my first, and we'll go into it in a minute, but I hit my first brick wall during that time. And it wasn't the shiny object syndrome because, I said, "You know what? I'm gonna give this real estate thing a try." But it was the brick wall of deciding to do something long enough to see it
Mhm.
succeed, see it through. And so for me, that was a big, big point of tension was, hey, am I going to try one thing, not many things, but am I going to commit to something long enough that I'm going to be great at it, that I'm going to be an expert at it, that I'm going to succeed? And for me, I know that that was a long answer to your short question about the fear of jumping into real estate. There was no fear. It was a lot of conflict on asking myself, Michael, do I want to dedicate my life to something? And if so, what is it? Is it real estate? And so I don't think a lot of people think that way, and they probably should, because that's why we have the shiny object syndrome, they call it, right? Is because everybody's just
Right.
bouncing from thing to thing. But anyways, that was my biggest hurdle when I first started, was just committing to the process.
Mm. So then in the commitment stages, do you find that maybe, and I struggle with some of this too, so this is hitting a little home. Do you find that some of it was personality driven or some of it was like just more maybe trauma driven, more like what was causing you not to commit? Like what was those things?
I don't think there's a fancy answer to this. I think it's just sometimes, and specifically for me in that time of my life, I was looking for the golden key. Or some will say, "Hey, I was looking for the magic pill." And so for me, I was like, "I have to make money." Like, I just got married out of college. I have to find a way to support us. So I was looking for anything, but what I was realizing was I was bouncing from thing to thing to thing, but I never gave enough time for myself, my mind, my body, to learn how to actually fulfill these things and succeed in these things. It was finally after 10, 15 ideas I'd gone through in my head after 1 to 2 years, I was like, you know what would happen if I just committed to one of these? Now, there are some people out there that it could be trauma based,
Right.
personality. For me, it was just, I just was looking for the magic pill, and I
Mm.
wasn't actually willing to put in the work in any of these. I was looking for something that was gonna make me money fast, like one of these get rich quick scenarios, when in reality, I didn't realize at the time that all these vehicles work if I work, but I just wasn't working long enough.
So that brings up another interesting question of how, even as entrepreneurs, we, segregate our minds like this. So here you are looking for the magic pill, as you say, which I like what you just said. You said I wasn't willing to work. And now seeing you, man, I can't believe we've known each other for 8, 9 years now. But to see you on the other side of that, where you're making, the 10X award and stuff like that for selling so much online for marketing digitally, the commitment. So you see that principle working, you're working, so it's working. But the question then becomes is how did you struggle, or was it a struggle? Because I know entrepreneurs, we have our compartmental. Here you are in business trying to get the magic pill, the golden key, things like that. So you can't commit, yet you're highly committed to your wife. And it almost seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? So was that ever a struggle that, or was it something that you just kept them so separate that it really didn't bleed into one another?
No, man, and that's a great question, and I would be lying to say that I kept them separate all the time. And so for me, that has been a big point in my life, where where's the balance between work life, right? And everybody's trying to find the balance. Can we ever find the balance? I'm not sure, Jim. You tell me. But for me, that's a big tension point too, of somebody who fell in love with the work eventually. So at the time I was bouncing from thing to thing, but eventually I fell in love with the process, fell in
Yeah.
love with the work. And there were times, and there still are times, when I have to keep myself in check, saying, "Hey, am I taking enough time for my wife and my kid? Am I being there present for them?" Definitely a big tension point there. And I'm not going to say I have it all figured out, because I'm still pushing through that. And that's still a big hurdle I have to cross. But, I would say that I've gotten better at it. But at the very beginning, yes, I would say there was some commitment issue there. Not as much as in not wanting to be in that relationship anymore, but commitment as in, like, hey, am I going to commit to being present? Does that make sense?
Mm, right.
Yeah. So I think that would be the answer there.
That's good.
That's good.
And I think like with the whole thing as being present. So it seems like you're much more learning how to be present. You're present in your business, present at home. What do you feel like the transition point was that like how did you start prioritizing those things?
Yeah, great question. And I think, it was probably whenever we first had our kid, which has been, a year and a half, 2 years now, once that process finally started. But it was like, hey, my wife, she can handle things, but, once you have a kid, that's a whole different kind of relationship, right? There's a
Yep.
whole different responsibility there. So I would say number one was whenever it came to client relationships. I've had several clients that I've worked with over the years that are very demanding, and a lot of entrepreneurs, especially digital marketers and sales, like they're very on the disc scale. A lot of them are high D personalities. I'm not saying that's all entrepreneurs, but a lot of the clients I work with, very driven, very motivated, work on the weekends. And so I often got sucked into that. Part of that was saying, hey, I got a family now. I had my wife, but we have a family. What can I do on weekends? Tell them no. You know, what can I do in the evenings to say, hey, blocking it off. And I think for me, it kind of I had my identity attached, and I still, like I said, I'm not perfect in any way, but I had my identity attached to the wrong people and to the I'm trying to figure out how to say it elegantly. I found my
Just
identity in things I shouldn't have, right? And, a lot of times when you start finding success, you start saying, "Hey, I'm associated with this person now. We've gotten these results and these success," and you start associating your identity with those people. And for a while, and this is a whole nother rabbit hole, so I don't know if we want to go down it, but you know, often found myself not feeling confident because I'm like, well, these people are finding success and I'm helping them find success. But what about myself? Could
mm,
I replicate the same thing for myself? And so, long story short, I think it was when the family transition happened there, but then, I still had issues come up. I still have things I'm working through, part of that identity, the confidence, the courage to step out and represent yourself instead of your clients, which is a whole nother conversation. But dude, you're just opening my heart right now. I'm just like pulling stuff out. I'm like, why am I sharing this with Jim?
because it's just, hey, listen, I've always had that. It's really funny because over the years, I just started asking questions and, you know, create safe space for people to actually share what's really happening. And I appreciate the vulnerability because I really think there's a lot of people who are listening that's going to really gain a lot because the things you're sharing are the things that really happen in many of us that we're too, whether ego driven or too scared to actually admit and face. So thank you. I commend you on the courage and the bravery to step forward with that. So thank you for so much of being so transparent, which then now leads into a furtherance of this question. So identity issues, challenges with, not being confident. You started the conversation was you were a part-time youth pastor. Now, I and many of my people who are going to listen to this are going to be Christians, some won't be. What is the role of your faith in all of this?
Yeah, and that's growing up in church. Faith is not something new to me. So I say that to say it's always been a part of my life and everything I do. And I would say I'm very hard whenever it comes to figure pulling, and this is something I struggle with, by the way. My wife tells me, like, "Michael, you need to open up more." So this is something that, Jim, you're getting the reps out of me, okay? So you're help pulling stuff out here. But I say for the faith side of things, like, I would be lying to say if it was all sunshine and rainbows, God, I included God in everything. But what I've realized is that a lot of times, what Jim, as I was growing in this journey, and I had those identity issues, I always go back to the true identity where I needed it to be, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So me, my faith, as a youth pastor, it was kind of like the anchor. It was the anchor that even when I was drowning, my first real estate deal, and I didn't tell you guys this part, but my first real estate deal, I lost $20,000. And so at that
Mm.
time, just gotten out of college, just got married. It was like, that was my first hit at rock bottom. I was like, what in the world? I'm all this credit card debt. But it was like every time I've hit a wall, I can go back and find that safety there. So for me, you asked, hey, how's your faith been involved in all this? I still struggle with the confidence and sometimes my self-worth, but I can always come back and say, okay, God, I got nothing else, but I got you. So help me through this. And so that's kind of it's been my anchor through it all.
That's wonderful, and I love hearing that. So what now, I love breaking this, you used the word anchor, and I'm actually gonna be doing an episode on called anchor points because it's something a conversation my wife and I had because we have anchor points in our life that we always go back to. Good or bad, we have anchor points. And I love that you said that your faith is an anchor for you. So with that being said, small victories create big breakthroughs. Where have you seen some really good victories come in your identity and your confidence. Because online, man, and just knowing you personally, you're an incredible individual. Like, I absolutely love you, and I'm so grateful for you to be here. So where do you say some of your victories have come in this struggle for identity and this struggle for confidence?
You know, there's been several, but I think for me, it's whenever I've seen people I'm working with that have started with nothing, maybe that whenever they have started with little, I should say nothing, and we've been able to get them big wins in our business or big wins in life. Like there's been several of those moments where I'm like, wow, like that reaffirms what I'm doing. That reaffirms that like, oh God, I'm supposed to be doing this. There's
Mhm.
been times when there's been feud or conflict. And this may sound really weird, so I'm gonna try to word this in a way that makes sense. But there've been times where there's been feud or conflict that has pushed me and pressured me in what I've been doing that have reaffirmed my identity and be like, okay, Michael, you're on the right path. And
Mhm.
some of the times it's because people are maybe trying to steal what you're doing in the industry, or they're trying to copy what you're doing, or trying to push you away because of how you operate in excellence, right? And some people don't like that. Some people don't like seeing you win. Some people want to take advantage of you for their own gain. And so those times are often reaffirming God, okay, I know I'm on the right path, even though it sucks at the time being hit with the right jab to the jaw, right? Even though people are trying to pull you out of the game. God, I know like this is obvious sign that it's a victory, right? We're heading in the right direction. And you may have heard many people or several people, speakers say, that every time you're going in the right direction, you'll hit oppression, right? Or some kind of like lid, right? And so that's for me been one sign of victory. But I would say just seeing other people win, but then also there's been certain times in when I've just felt that oppression, felt people pushing it back, and I'm like, "This is good pushback." And that's a hard mindset to have whenever you're getting pressed and beaten and shaken over, but I think if you look at things differently, you can see the good in it. So that's what I've tried to do.
And that's great, and
That's
I've seen
great.
a lot. So then how do you not make not take these victories and make them your identity? Like, when you see massive wins for your clients and stuff and say, "Man, that's who I am." Like, how do you keep that separate?
You know, and this is something I was actually laying in bed thinking about last night. I've been selfish many times, and I think just the realization that that award is nothing.
Mm,
This business, and this may sound totally bad, this business you're starting is nothing. Michael, your business is nothing. I could be gone tomorrow like that. And so for me, the realization has come, into my mind that everything we do here on earth, we only have one goal: to give glory to God, right? And
right.
so for me, I have had times where I'm being selfish. I've had times where it's all about me, me, me. But recently, it's been more of like, even you've seen the picture of me holding up the award from ClickFunnels. It's like, I thought about making a video and I thought about doing it, and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. And should
Mm,
we live life with that? Oh, it's not matter. I'm not going to give it my best. No, I'm going to give it my best, but realize that these are just material things, man. These are just material things. They're awards, big whoop de doo. I'm going to still give it my all. I'm going to go still serve people, but this is not the ultimate goal. And
mm,
so I would say you probably have a similar mindset about that just because you and I are both of, the same faith, we believe in the same God, but I don't know,
mhm.
maybe I'm wrong. Would you say that's kind of the mindset you have, or do you struggle with the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things I struggle with, but same mindset. Like, if I go to, gold button, platinum button, whatever on YouTube, then I'll probably be like, "Hey, this is so cool," and then I just hang it and forget about it and just keep on doing what I'm doing. Because I don't put a lot of stock in the thing, because, like, I love saying, "Wow, all that hard work and something came of it." But I'm not gonna stay in there, because if I stay in previous victories, I don't get further victories in the future.
Mm, I like that.
What I've noticed, a lot of people who end up failing long term, it's because they camped on a victory. And so they'll be like, "Oh, I remember back when I did this, 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 and this," and they're not doing it anymore. So I tend to celebrate, because what you celebrate stays. I will celebrate it and then move on from it to truly what my purpose and my goals are and what God is saying, "Okay, here's where we're going." but I do acknowledge it, but I don't tie anything to it because if I never get one, I'm still Jim, I'm still a child of God, you know what I'm saying? And like there's these levels to this, and I can't say I was always good at that. Like when I was a kid, it was terrible. It's like I everything had to be there because I was pushed away. I had some abuse. I had lots of bullying that happened to me. Like I tried to take my life like twice because of it. And so everything I could do to make myself feel okay, I did. So I feel you on this, man. I feel you like really think about not making it a big deal, but definitely celebrating it in the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
there's I don't think there's
uh,
anything wrong with celebrating it,
no.
but I would just say the same thing you said, and it's a lot of times we let our accomplishments and our victories
Mhm.
become idols,
They do.
uh, and I think that's where the hang up happens, is that so many people live in that, and like you mentioned, and never move past it. So I would just say I agree with everything you just said.
Awesome. We're on agreement. We're on agreement then. So in all of this, have you ever really like or do you currently fight with like depression or anything like that that may come with some of the gaps you're trying to fill?
Great question, man. I have. I'm not gonna say I've had some family members, some friends that have gone through really bad depression, and to the point, and Jim, I've had family members try to end their own life, call me, "Hey, Michael, like, I'm about to end it," and it's scary. It's scary.
Mhm.
I've been there, but not to that point, and I would say that I've had more anxiety about things, and that's been one area in my life. Is It's crazy, even in business, you can get trauma and experience anxiety in certain ways I never even thought would imagine. Because whenever I was younger, I was like, "Oh, like, never experienced that, I'll never like, I'm good, I'm not anxious, I'm not," but then you hit a roadblock and you experience pain in a certain way that it comes,
Mhm.
and so for me, not necessarily depression, I would say maybe in waves at very minor times, but for me, it's more anxiousness that I've had to experience and just feeling of overwhelm.
That's
That's
really cool.
really
So like how do you deal with the anxiety? Like do you just let it come and go or do you actually have a process that says, "Hey, here's what I do to help it?"
Yeah. I've really struggled with opening up, and that's just me. My family's been really always really private. I shouldn't say all parts of my family, but a lot of my family very private. They're known for straight to the point, quiet, like, very different breed, right? And so for me, that's something I've always struggled with. But what I found helped me most, and my wife would probably like to hear this,
Mm.
but being able to sit down on the couch and talk it out with somebody. And there's not many people I feel comfortable talking about those struggles and those pains with. So I would say for me personally, it's just been able to go to her and sit down and be like, "Hey, this is what's going on right now. I'm sorry I've been acting this way. I'm sorry acted out towards you, or, XYZ. This is what I'm dealing with." And a lot of times that just knowing that I have somebody there I can go to has been a big help for me. I still struggle with that sometimes because there's times I just want to bottle it all up. And that's what I've done for so many years, is just sit on the couch, go to my office somewhere to bottle it up, keep it there. But I'm slowly realizing over time that it's okay to share things. It's okay to be emotional. And so for me, it's just been opening up to others that I know that are close to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the growth and the healing that the process that you're sharing in. And when your wife listens to the episode, she's gonna hold you accountable. She'd be like, "All right, here's the couch. Let's go." You
She's
know,
been really she'll come to me and she'll say like, "Hey, like, I could tell you're off. Or you wanna talk about
yeah,
something, or let you go?" And so she's been really
that's awesome.
whenever it comes to that stuff. So she's has learned my body, which my body language, we've been together for 11 years now. So she's like, I think she has it figured out, but she's come from a good place as like being a caretaker. Yeah, but I would definitely say anybody who struggles with any form of anxiety, depression, we all go through it differently, but if you
Mhm.
can share it with somebody, because there's always, for me, I've found there's people willing to listen if you just seek it.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, I will say on the other end of that, my wife and I are celebrating 24 years together this year.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And then very much dealing with the mental health issues and stuff
Right.
like that. And that'll be on further episodes with me. I got my wife actually agreed to be on an episode or 2 to talk about that. So, like, all right, so we have all of this stuff swirling around, identity, anxiety, you know, faith, and things like that. So let's bring it down into this question. No, and I think I've heard it online once or twice over the years, but knowing what you know now, being who you are now, if you were to go back when it all started, what would you have done differently or what would you have done the same? Either way, that could help somebody who's just starting out saying, "Okay, here's a path." What would you have done differently or what would you have done the same?
Okay. There's a few things here. And so a few of them will definitely help the younger entrepreneurs that are listening. Number one is know your worth. When I first started out in the marketing and sales arena, I was undercharging completely. And I think that just going down that lane at the beginning, I'm not saying I should have charged way more, but I was undervaluing my talents, my work, and that caused a lot of pain over time and a lot of stress over time because I was chasing more work, right? And my situation is unique because I had contracts and things of that nature, but it all came down to, again, the identity and the confidence issues. So I would say, if I was going back to the beginning, I would tell Michael or anybody at the start line, I would say, "Hey, know your worth. Know that you are very good at what you do. Know that
Mhm.
you can charge what you're worth. Know that there's people who need what you have. So step into that. Don't be afraid. Step into that." And I think that at the beginning, that's what started a lot of the things I'm feeling, today or I have felt in the past. So that'd be number one. Is that pretty clear? I got a few more, but I just want
It's
to make
very
sure
clear.
that
That's
okay.
very clear.
And number two, I would say is take risk, but take calculated risk.
It's
For
good.
me, as as I was as I was getting out of college and stuff, I just was trying everything. I was jumping. I was, just doing anything I could, which is good, but I took pride in that. I was like, I take action fast. But what happened was over time is I found myself in situations I shouldn't have been if I would have just stepped back for a bit, step back for a time and said, okay, do I really want to do this or do I really need to do this? And that's in anything. It's not just business, it's in your finances, your health, your relationships. I'm just taking those calculated decisions more to heart. And specifically for business, that's where I'm not going to say I've made tons of money and kept it all. I've lost a lot of money. I've been at rock bottom but it's often because I've jumped before I've thought. And you hear all these people doing sales pitches, oh, execute fast, act now, and like all these things. That's good to take action fast, but you definitely want to make sure you're having informed decisions involved. And that would be the second thing. And so
Mhm.
I just laugh because I'm in this sales arena and I'm in this industry and that's like that can be a big sales tactic, especially, like, with coaching programs and Jim, I mean, you see it all the time. You're in the industry I'm in a little bit, and you just hear people pressure, pressure, pressure. Pressure is good, but it's okay to step back. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
I like that. Mhm.
Yeah, so that would be number 2. So number 1 is just know your worth. Number 2 is take calculated risk, and then number 3, I would just say, "Hey, Michael, just commit for the long haul." If you truly believe in something, if you truly, have a vision for something, just commit for the long term. Because listen, a tree doesn't grow in a day. A tree doesn't grow in a week. A tree takes years. But when that tree grows and it's planted and it's there, it's there. Most of the time, the
Right.
tree is there for a lifetime, right? And so for me, I would, going back to whenever I was bouncing around from job or business to business or job to job, would just say, Michael, just go ahead now, stick with one thing, get really good at it, and see it until you're an expert. And that would just be advice for anybody that feels like they're spread thin. Is just like, hey, go all in on one thing. There's actually a book about that, so go check it out.
It's a good book. Okay. Yeah, man, I appreciate that. That's some great wisdom, some really good wisdom, and this has been a great conversation. And for all you guys who are listening, I'm gonna make sure that all of Michael's social media and everything that where you can connect them, it will be in the show notes. At the official Michael Tucker is where he's on social media. And make sure you go get the show notes, follow him, follow what he's up to, follow what he's doing. especially in the virtual events space. I think the challenges, I think that has been incredible to see how much you flourished in that, and of course, I'm gonna be joining some soon at some point. But as we close out, what do you have going on that you say you would love to tell people, say, "Hey, come check this out." Like, what do you got going on?
Yeah, at the time, man, we're actually nobody knows about this. So you're the only one like outside of my employees, my staff. So we're actually creating a new community just on digital marketing and sales. And so I have a bunch of higher ticket programs, but I realize there's a lot of people that just need something to start out. So if you're here, you may not be seeking any business advice or business mentorship, but if you are, Jim, we're creating a community called the $1,000,000 Secrets Community. I'd love to get you in there and I need you to come teach to our students. If you can come teach, that'd be awesome. But just a super affordable
Let
community
me
for
know.
people to come in and get all of our curriculum and get all the coaching you need to go and build a business fast. But you can go to milliondollar secrets.com. The site's not ready yet as we're recording this, but it's going to be within days, it's going to be launching. So by the time you're listening to this, it should be ready to go. And so, Jim, let's connect offline, see what we can do to collaborate, maybe even give your listeners some kind of like free trial or some kind of, some way to get in there and experience this. So it's because it's going to be amazing and it's going to change a lot of lives.
Awesome, I look forward to it, and absolutely would love to come hang out with your group. You know me, I definitely love being able to share some stuff and getting people to, create the impact that they want. So, looking forward to that. We'll make sure that's all in the show notes. And guys, thank you for listening this far. Make sure you connect into this. It's going to be an incredible community. I could already tell you. And then Michael, thank you so much for, like I said earlier, your vulnerability, for hanging out, your wisdom, and just for having a great conversation. So I want to thank you for all of that.
Well, thank you, my friend, and everybody here that's listening and watching this. Like, know you may know Jim or you may not, but I just wanted to say Jim has a heart of gold. I've known him for several years now, and he's just like every time I talk to him, real, raw, vulnerable, willing to share. And this dude has a very, like I said earlier, very big servant's heart. So make sure you follow the podcast because he's only going to continue to get better and better at these shows. Make sure to share this with a friend. He didn't ask me to do this, but I'm just saying it, like share it with a friend because I promise you, all it takes is one share and it could change somebody's life. Think about it, right? Just one, you could copy that link, paste it to somebody that you think needs a certain episode, this episode or a different one, and it could change the trajectory of somebody's life just by this one conversation. So, Jim, thank you so much, man, for creating a space for stuff like this. And guys, make sure you tap in not only with me but with Jim. He'll lead you the right way. So, thank you, my friend. Have a great day.